Meta fired around 8,000 people for AI this year, and is already hiring them back because the automation could not do the work. That is happening right now, while some of the severance checks are still clearing. So which is it? Could the AI do those jobs, or could it not? Both cannot be true. So I went and did the math the press release skips, what it actually costs a company to fire a job and then buy the same job back. The answer is bigger and uglier than the headline, and Meta is walking straight into it. Start with a mistake most people make. A layoff looks like pure savings. It is not. A company pays people to leave, then pays a premium to bring the work back. And the thing it was really paying for slips out the door in between. For one company in 3 that tried this, buying the work back cost more than the layoff ever saved. That is the number this whole story turns on. So what did Meta actually cut? Start with the size, because it is bigger than it sounds. 8,000 jobs, about 1 in 10 people at the company, gone in 3 waves over a single week in May. And this was not a sudden panic. Meta had already cut about 1,000 people from its Reality Labs division in January, and a few hundred more in March. Its chief executive, Mark Zuckerberg, had been blunt about the plan. Spend less on people, spend more on machines, and do it now. On top of that, Meta canceled plans to hire 6,000 more, and it moved another 7,000 workers into brand new teams with names like Applied AI Engineering. Added up, and this is not a trim, it is a reshaping of who the company pays to be there. Now look at which desks emptied. The cuts landed hardest on the integrity team, the people who review posts and decide what stays up and what comes down. Cybersecurity, content design. In plain terms, Meta thinned out the group whose whole job is catching the platform's mistakes before you ever see them. If your job is to catch someone else's errors, you already know how this tends to end. Why those desks and not others? Money, pointed at one target. Trimming the payroll frees up somewhere between $8 and $10 billion. Meta is pouring that into a data center build so large that its spending for the year runs $125 to $145 billion. That is more than double the year before. The people were not failing, they were fuel. Meta burned salary on one side to pay for machines on the other, betting the machines could take over the desks it had just cleared. So can the machines actually do it? Meta's own plan gives you the target. Automated systems already handle about half of the content review on Facebook and Instagram. Meta wants software handling closer to 90% of it. So nearly the whole job of deciding what billions of people are allowed to post now runs through a machine. Think about what that job really is. It is not sorting spam. It is judgment calls at the edges. A war photo versus gore, a joke versus a threat, a health question versus a banned topic. The easy cases were automated years ago. What is left is the hard 10%, the part that needs a person to look and think. Meta's answer was to hand more of exactly that to the machine. Put the bet in plain terms. Automating this is a bit like buying a self-driving car that is not finished yet, and then firing your driver on the same day. Maybe the car gets there. Maybe it handles the open highway fine and only struggles at the messy intersections. But you have already let the driver go, so when it freezes at the intersection, there is nobody in the seat. Meta made that trade for a service 2 billion people use, and it made it on purpose. Before we judge Meta, it helps to know this experiment has already been run to the end somewhere else. A company called Klarna, the buy now, pay later firm, went first and went hard. It replaced around 700 customer service agents with an AI system and bragged about the savings. For a while, the demo looked great. Then the cracks showed. Customers got worse answers. Problems a person would have solved in one message turned into loops that solved nothing. Satisfaction slid. The quality of the actual work, the thing customers were paying for, dropped. So Klarna did something companies almost never admit to. It started hiring human agents back. And its chief executive, Sebastian Siemiatkowski, said the quiet part out loud. Cost, he admitted, had become too big a factor in the decision, meaning they cut for the savings not because the machine was ready. And they learned that the expensive way. Now hold Klarna up next to Meta. Klarna moved 700 seats and hit the wall. Meta is moving the judgment work for 2 billion users and pointing at 90%. If the small version of this bet already broke, the real question is what Meta knew about its own machine before it jumped. So here is what Meta knew, and it flips the whole layoff on its head. More than a year before these layoffs, Meta published a post admitting that its automated moderation was getting too much wrong. Its own words, the error rates were too high, harmless posts were being taken down, and real people were being punished by mistake. It even said more human reviewers would help. So Meta did not fire people the machine had replaced. It fired the people who clean up after the machine, right after admitting, in writing, that the machine makes too many messes. And there is a second turn. Reporting says Meta keeps internal lists marking thousands of former staff as ineligible for rehire. So the exact people who knew the system may be the ones it cannot easily call back. Once you see that, the money stops looking like savings. Follow the dollars the way an accountant would. When Meta lets someone go, the savings are not clean. US workers were offered 16 weeks of severance, plus 2 more weeks for every year they had been there. So a 10-year employee walks out with roughly 9 months of pay in hand. That is real money leaving the building on the way out. Then the machine meets the hard cases. It stumbles on them, the way Klarna's did, and the mistakes pile up where the humans used to stand. So the company starts hiring again, often at a higher price, because now it is chasing scarce talent and moving fast. It paid to remove the work. Now it pays a premium to put it back. This is the round trip I promised you at the top. You bought what felt like a one-way ticket. Cut the cost, keep the savings, done. But it was a return ticket the whole time. You pay for the flight out. You pay for the flight home. And the luggage you actually cared about does not always make it back. The luggage, in this case, is everything those people knew. And Meta is not alone in this. IBM, Salesforce, and Google have all quietly added workers back into oversight roles they had cut. It is turning into a pattern across the whole economy, and researchers have finally started counting it. One study of companies that made AI-driven cuts found that 32% had already rehired for the same kind of work. A separate survey of 600 HR leaders put it higher. About 2 in 3 employers who cut jobs for AI are already hiring people back. More than half of them did it inside 6 months, some inside 3. Now, the number that matters most today. Among the companies that went through this, 31% said the cost of rehiring was actually higher than what the layoff saved them. Another 42% said the savings and the rehiring roughly canceled out. Only about a quarter came out ahead. Look hard at that split. For 3 companies out of 4, the big AI restructuring either lost money or made none. The savings that justified firing thousands of people mostly did not exist. Why does it keep happening? The same research has an answer, and it is almost funny. Nearly a quarter of these companies admitted the layoff decision was based on broad hopes about automation, not an actual look at what the work involved. They fired first and studied the job later, but the money is only half the loss, and the smaller half. Now the part that does not show up on any spreadsheet. Those companies look back, about a third said they had lost skills they could not easily replace. Nearly as many said the people who stayed simply could not fill the gap the leavers left. 2 out of 3 said the same core thing. The AI took over some of the tasks, but not the whole job. It could do pieces. It could not be the person. Bring that back to Meta. Remember the sentence Meta wrote about its own system? Error rates too high, harmless content removed, real people punished by mistake. Look at what that sentence really is. It is not a confession. It is a job description. It describes, almost perfectly, the work the human moderators were doing. Catching the machine when it gets a hard call wrong. Fired the answer to its own complaint. You have probably been told, at some point, that a machine could do what you do, and maybe it can do most of it. The machine can usually handle the easy 80% of your job. The whole reason a company keeps you is the other 20. So walk it back to Meta one last time. It cut the people who catch its mistakes to pay for a machine it had already admitted makes too many. That is not a saving, it is a round trip. You pay to send the work away, you pay again to bring it home. And the most valuable thing you owned, what those people carried in their heads, leaks out somewhere over the ocean. And never fully comes back. Go back to that number from the very start, 8,000 people. It is easy to hear that as a cost the company removed, but that is the wrong way to count it. Those were not 8,000 expenses. They were 8,000 paychecks of know-how, every hard call and every lesson about where the machine breaks. And Meta paid all of it to walk out the door. Now, I want to be fair about what we do not know yet. Meta has not published a net figure, and it may still come out ahead. A company that size can absorb a lot. The rehiring is being reported quietly, not announced from a stage. But the direction is not really in doubt anymore, because the wider data is already in, and it points one way. When you fire faster than you understand the work, you do not save the money. You just move it around and lose a little on every leg of the trip. Think back to those severance checks clearing in May, the ones I opened with. Every one of them was Meta paying to remove a problem it would, months later, start paying to bring back. That is the whole story in one image. If you take one thing from this, take this. The reason a company gives for a cut and the true price of that cut are almost never the same number. One goes in the press release, the other shows up a few quarters later in the rehiring. That gap between the story and the bill is the thing this series exists to measure. So the next time a big company says a deep cut saved money, do not stop at the press release. The bill shows up later in who it quietly hires back. If that is the kind of math you want run for you every week, this is the channel that runs it.